On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, Tesla releases its production and delivery totals for Q4, and thus we know the numbers for all of 2024. Did they hit their goal? Plus, Cybertruck now qualifies for the $7,500 point-of-sale tax credit, the new Model 3 wins a big award in Europe, and more. What's happening, friends? I'm Ryan McCaffrey, joining you as always for Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. I come at you every week, every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. This is episode 492, the first one of 2025. It's publishing on January 5th. To my left are two four-legged friends, Daisy the Boxer and Mina the Future Service Dog. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope your 2025 is off to a great start. Mine is off to an interesting start in the car department. That means, yes, I have another tire story for you, and I'm going to tell you the whole thing at the end of the podcast so that if you just showed up for the Tesla news and you don't care what's going on with my car, you won't miss anything. But for those of you that want to stick around, I've got a fun story for you later on. As I get going here in 2025, a quick thing that I missed because I recorded early last week, and this might possibly be all over and done with by the time you hear this, but I think it's worth mentioning anyway, and that is that Tesla was, and again, perhaps still is, if there are any inventory left, offering free lifetime supercharging on the remaining inventory of Foundation Series Cybertrucks. I note this because, number one, some of you might be interested in buying one, so that's first and foremost. Number two, I'm on the record on this podcast saying that I thought that no Cybertruck would ever get free lifetime supercharging because of power share. Because theoretically, you could power your whole house and any other Teslas that you own with your Cybertruck that you could charge up exclusively via your free supercharging. Now, it's entirely possible that Tesla might revoke your free lifetime supercharging if you abuse that, meaning, say, blatant and repeated offenses that they would no doubt be able to see by looking at the power going into and out of the truck. But I couldn't find any fine print that specifically spelled that out, though they do say they reserve the right to revoke it if they feel like it, or if they find probable cause to do so, basically. But honestly, for those folks, if you're thinking about this, if you're hearing that for the first time, and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, maybe, well, let's just walk through it for a second. For those of you wanting to buy a Cybertruck with the white interior and the Cyber wheels with all-terrain tires, so with those two paid options, this really isn't a bad deal, because that's exactly the Cybertruck that I was planning on buying before the new Model 3 performance swayed me with its irresistible deal. I was going to buy a dual motor with the white interior and the Cyber wheels and all-terrain tires, and that configuration is $93,500. So basically, for $6,500 more, you'd get free lifetime supercharging, plus Foundation Series already includes free lifetime premium connectivity and a few other perks like the Power Share voucher to get Power Share set up at your house. So, that makes it pretty close. You're not really paying too much of a premium. You could maybe argue that you're not really paying a premium at all for that free lifetime supercharging. So if you did want, say, the tactical gray interior and or the core wheels with the all-season tires, well, then at that point, it's maybe not the best deal compared to just buying a regular general production Cybertruck, even though you obviously wouldn't get free lifetime supercharging on that. And regardless, if you are considering this, you'd have to want full self-driving regardless too, because the FSD does is part of the Foundation Series package. But anyway, I guess the reasonable thing to deduce here is that Tesla must really be having trouble finding any takers for those last few Foundation Series Cybertrucks now that the general production truck is readily available. I do suspect that dangling free lifetime supercharging is probably going to be enough of an incentive to move however many of them are left. And again, as you hear this, it is possible that they are all spoken for and bought up already. In fact, one of the Ride the Lightning listeners messaged me and said he took advantage of this deal. He bought the Foundation Series Cybertruck with the free lifetime supercharging. So good stuff. Speaking of the Cybertruck this week, some absolutely great news, and to me at least, unexpected at this point in time. The Cybertruck now qualifies for the $7,500 individual use federal tax credit. Now, certainly this only applies to the bare bones dual motor truck, meaning with those core wheels and all-season tires, along with the tactical gray interior, because, as you know, the base price of the Cybertruck is right at that $80,000 MSRP cap for the tax credit. All right. You all know it's $79,990. We know how Tesla structures their prices. You know what I mean. But still, I mean, this is absolutely fantastic news, and there is zero doubt this will absolutely cause a spike in Cybertruck demand, because you can now get a Cybertruck for $72,500 out the door. That is a much better deal than $80,000. You know, that's basically, it's just about 10% off, just under that. So that's a nice discount right there. Again, if you qualify for that tax credit. And then once the single motor rear wheel drive Cybertruck becomes available, which, by the way, if you remember back to last week's podcast, I made my prediction there. I said that I think the single motor will be out this quarter. That one naturally as well will qualify for the credit. That is, if it makes it out before the tax credit potentially, but hopefully not, gets killed by the incoming change in the political situation in America. That single motor Cybertruck was announced to be $61,000, which would make it $53,500 out the door with the tax credit. Now that one, at least, you could add the white interior to if you wanted, and or the cyber wheels and all-terrain tires, and still qualify for the credit. So you've got a little flexibility there, as the puppies are just, they are rumbling next to me. So if that is coming through on the mic, everything's fine. They are just having some rollicking good playtime right now. Anyway, back to Tesla. As I'm already on record with, my personal opinion, that doesn't matter because you'll make your own purchasing decision, but for me, I don't particularly think that the single motor is a great deal. Even at $53,500, you know, it's 250 miles of range. It's not all-wheel drive, and so with that range, it's not really going to be able to tow very far at all. But I suppose if you were just going to use that Cybertruck as an around-town car and not tow anything and probably not road trip in it, which that is the use case for a lot of people. A lot of people, whether it's an electric car or a gas car, don't road trip in it and they don't tow anything. So if that's you, then maybe then that is an appealing option on the for the Cybertruck. All right, PS on this, by the way. Even if the Cybertruck doesn't get a price cut this quarter, as I predicted on last week's podcast during my prediction show, I might still have to give myself half a point at the end of the year when I score my predictions, because this, again, for me, somewhat unexpected tax credit qualification does act as an effective price cut. So I might have to give myself a half a point at least on that one come end of the year. Okay, one more Cybertruck story, and this one you may very well have heard about, since it was a very terrible thing that happened in Las Vegas, and it happened to involve a Cybertruck. And as it turns out, if it hadn't involved a Cybertruck, it probably would have been an even more terrible thing than the already terrible thing that happened. So on New Year's Day, a rented Cybertruck pulled up in front of the Trump Tower Hotel in Las Vegas and exploded, killing the driver and injuring 7 people. It was not a battery pack fire. It was, in fact, far, far worse than that. Here's the story via CNN, who writes, "The vehicle was rented in Colorado and arrived in Las Vegas at 7:30 a.m. Wednesday morning," which was New Year's Day, according to Las Vegas Sheriff Kevin McMahill. About an hour later, after driving up and down Las Vegas Boulevard, the truck pulled up to the Trump Hotel and exploded, authorities said. Authorities believe fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel, which were stored in, the story doesn't say this, but I've seen the video, and maybe you have too. They were stored in the covered vault, so under the tonneau in the bed, were connected to a detonation system controlled by the driver in the Cybertruck, according to a law enforcement official briefed on the investigation. The FBI is working to determine whether the incident was a terrorist act, said Jeremy Schwartz, acting special agent in charge for the FBI's Las Vegas office. The agency believes it was an isolated incident and there is no further danger to the public. There is 1 person dead inside the Cybertruck, and it's the driver, where the body remains as authorities continued. Well, that was Wednesday. Obviously, it's not that way anymore, but 7 victims were hurt by the explosion, all of whom are in stable condition, according to Deputy Fire Chief Billy Samuels. So, well, given Elon Musk's rather close association with Trump in recent months, it certainly would seem like not a stretch to suggest that the attacker very intentionally set off the explosive in the location that he did. I have to caveat, of course, by saying we don't know the full extent of the facts yet, but it sure seems pretty clear that this was all very deliberate. The driver has since been identified. I'm not going to mention the name here because I don't think it's sort of relevant to what we're talking about. But the security video that I mentioned a few moments ago, that made its way around the internet. It's quite a thing to see, to the point where when I watched it the first time, I actually questioned whether or not it was real. And the reason for that is because you see the security camera footage of the truck. It's from the essentially the driver's rear quarter angle, from a decent bit away, but not super far away. So it's looking at the truck from the rear left side towards the front doors of the hotel, which the truck is parked in front of. And when the explosion occurs, the aforementioned fireworks go off. So you see a huge fireball erupt from the vault, like practically straight up through the vault cover. The cover gets blown away, obviously, straight up. And then, so you just see this fireball, and then you see fireworks going off. And that's where I was like, wait, is this a special effect? Is this real? Is someone just faking this? But no, there were fireworks in the bed, and it's unfortunately very, very real. The video is viewable online. I certainly recommend parental discretion in case there are any. I know sometimes people listen to this podcast with their families, whether they're in the car or whatnot, but it's not gory, but I would certainly still call it violent. It is a violent explosion. You can see again the flames and the fireworks shooting out amidst the flames, and it's kind of a miracle that no one else was killed. I mean, I feel terribly for the 7 people that were injured here, but it is astounding that no one else was killed, given that the truck was parked directly in front of the front doors of the hotel. In fact, on that note, I want to play you an audio clip from the day of the incident. Here is the aforementioned sheriff in Las Vegas, Kevin McMahill, commenting on the Cybertruck's role in helping ensure that no one else, aside from the driver, was killed. And I want to give a tip of the cap to Tesla tipster Sawyer Merritt, who had posted this TV news clip on his feed. So take a listen to the audio from the sheriff.
What I also would like you to pay attention to on that video, as you see that, it looks like the exterior of that truck is completely intact as it sits there. The fact that this was a Cybertruck really limited the damage that occurred inside of the valet, because it had most of the blast go up through the truck and out. In fact, if you look on that video, you'll see that the front glass doors at the Trump hotel were not even broken by that blast, which they were parked directly in front of. You can see that in the video there.
Sure enough, if you either watch the video or look at photos of the aftermath of this incident, you can see that the Cybertruck's tires didn't even pop. The tires are still inflated. They're still intact, as are all of the body panels. I mean, the glass all got blown out, as did the vault, as I've already mentioned, but the truck itself is shockingly intact. I mean, it's almost, this isn't an apples to apples thing, but it's the passenger vehicle equivalent of setting off a bomb inside a tank. Sure, the inside of the tank is destroyed, but everything surrounding that vehicle, the truck in this case, is mostly okay. And again, I mean, I don't want to make this about the Cybertruck. This was a presumably intentional, possibly terrorist attack, but the fact that the Cybertruck was seemingly intentionally chosen for this, it is a very, very relevant part of the story. And as it turns out, choosing the Cybertruck may have saved a lot of lives. I mean, if this person had done this in any other vehicle, the loss of life could have been a lot more significant. And when word got to Elon in this, he posted, before anybody really knew anything, he posted, quote, "The whole Tesla senior team is investigating this matter right now. We'll post more information as soon as we learn anything. We've never seen anything like this." And then later, when it became clear that it was, if it's fair for me to call it this at this point, a suicide bomb, Elon posted, quote, "Cybertruck is the worst possible choice for a car bomb, as its stainless steel armor will contain the blast better than any other commercial vehicle," end quote. And sadly, we now have real-world proof that he seems to be right. As I said, it's the passenger vehicle equivalent of setting off a bomb inside a tank, and that's I think the point here, for the purposes of talking about this on a Tesla podcast, is to, I mean, certainly lament the tragedy, but also be so thankful that this wasn't worse, because this could have been so much worse. Perhaps the attacker intended it to be worse. We don't know. We don't know whether the attacker intended to take human life besides his own, and the truck effectively foiled that, or if he was trying not to, if he just wanted to, who knows. But I'm just grateful that no one else was killed, and I hope that the 7 injured people are going to be okay, as it sounds like the initial report was that they were all in stable condition. Well, there is obviously no real way at all to pivot away from that terrible story, but to get back to some good news, and I do promise the rest of the podcast is good news from here, the winners for Tesla's quarterly community vote for the new supercharging locations that they've been running for a number of quarters now, at least a couple of years, I think. Those winners have been announced, those winning locations. So I'll give you the list real quick. We've got Braidwood, Australia. We've got a South Korea location, one in Japan, one in Croatia, Czech Republic, Bosnia and Herzegovina. We've got a spot in Italy, Warsaw South in Poland, Bathurst, New Brunswick. We've got a Quebec, Nova Scotia, Ontario, British Columbia, And then in the U.S., we've got Claremont, Florida, Cody, Wyoming, Hot Springs, Arkansas, Johnson City, Tennessee, and Taos, New Mexico. And as I say every time that I bring this up, which I guess is once a quarter, I just love this program. I love that Tesla involves the community because, of course, Tesla has a professional team of people who are who have all the data, right? They see where all the cars are, where all the charging is. They can see state of charge. Oh, are people making it from this supercharger to the next one? Do we need to put another one in between? So they don't necessarily need to involve the community in this, but I'm grateful that they do. I think it's really awesome that they do invite the community and the Tesla owners, to come in and make their voice heard on this. And speaking of making your voice heard, you can vote for new locations now that we are in a new quarter, the first quarter of 2025, by going to tesla.com/supercharger-voting/overview. Before I get going with this week's headline story about, of course, Tesla's Q4 production and delivery numbers, I wanted to say that I hope all of you who are kindly backing me at that $10 tier or higher on my Patreon enjoyed this week's lightning round mini episode that I do every week on Patreon, which was about my Tesla New Year's resolutions. I had 5 of them, talked through them. I hope you folks will enjoy that. And if here in the new year, if you're thinking, you know what, yes, Ryan, I've been listening to the podcast for a long time. I would love to support you on Patreon. I'd love to get an ad-free episode. I'd love to get early access, and I'd love to get those weekly lightning round mini episodes. You can do that by supporting me on Patreon. To go do that, head to my Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/Tesla podcast, and you can find all the information there. So the support tier you can support me for just $5 a month. That'll get you the ad-free episodes every week and the early access every week. And if you step up to that $10 per month tier, that's the most popular one. You'll get the ad-free every week, the early access every week, and you'll get all of those lightning round mini episodes. There are now 126 of them waiting for you. And for the most part, they are evergreen topics, meaning even if you go back and listen to the first one, the second one, the third one now, they should still hopefully be of some interest. A reminder too, as I've been watching some of you kindly do, there is an annual pledge option if you'd just like to support me once for an entire year. You can do that on the Patreon page, and you'll get a 10% off discount for doing so. That's my way of thanking you for committing to an entire year of support. So again, visit my Patreon page, which is found at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. Patreon spelled Patreon. This podcast is always free, has always been free, will always be free, but the Patreon is a voluntary thing, which I'd be humbled and grateful if you would consider as I deliver this podcast to you each and every single week. This week, Tesla posted its Q4 2024 vehicle production and delivery numbers, and thus, we now know the overall 2024 vehicle production and delivery numbers. I will read you, as I always do, Tesla's usual short and sweet press release. They simply said, quote, "In the fourth quarter, we produced approximately 459,000 vehicles, delivered over 495,000 vehicles, and deployed 11 gigawatt hours of energy storage products, a record for both deliveries and deployments. Thank you to all of our customers, employees, suppliers, shareholders, and supporters who helped us achieve these results." Well, obviously, they did not quite crack 500,000, and thus they missed the 506,344 deliveries they needed in order to reach 1.8 million vehicle deliveries for the year, which was their stated goal from the beginning of the year. As you'd probably guess, Wall Street was not thrilled with the ever so slight miss, with the stock price of Tesla taking a dip the day the numbers were announced, but popping right back up again, and then some, with a few extra dollars on top to close out the week on Friday. So it closed out the week at $410 Now, Tesla, as they did mention in that super short press release, they did still have their best quarter ever, even though they missed their overall 2024 delivery goal. So they topped Q4 of last year, which Q4 2023 was 484,507. For this just completed year of 2024, the final delivery tally was 1,789,226. So they were just over 10,000 deliveries away from that 1.8 million goal, a very, very slight miss. Thus, deliveries were even a bit lower than last year, because last year they did hit 1.8 million for the year. Specifically, 2023 was 1,808,581 deliveries. Now, in 2024, Tesla obviously had the Cybertruck adding to the total, which they effectively didn't last year when they delivered maybe a few hundred Cybertrucks from November 30th to December 31st of 2023. But I think the difference probably can be attributed to the new Model 3, the 3 Fresh, as I've taken to calling it, which took time to ramp up here in Fremont for the American market. And then, certainly as part of that, the new Model 3 Performance, the car I just bought, that wasn't even announced until April and didn't even start delivering until May. Now, not that the Performance variant of the Model 3 is specifically a huge seller. I don't know the split between Performance Model 3s and non-Performance Model 3s, but just from anecdotally driving around on San Francisco Bay Area roads where there are a lot of Teslas, my best guess is it's 1 in every 10 is a Performance. Maybe 2 at the most, maybe 2 out of every 10. It's not a huge percentage, but every little bit counts. It still matters, especially given how narrow this miss was, and the Model 3 is obviously a pretty high volume vehicle for Tesla, second only to the Model Y. So a little bit of a miss, but ever so slightly. Now, early in the week, a few days before Tesla released the numbers, I went ahead and made this the subject of this week's Patreon poll. I put up the poll in the beginning of the week and asked for your Q4 delivery predictions. And I have to say, you were all very optimistic, and honestly, I was too. I really thought they were going to get there, because Tesla, historically, they always seem to pull it out. They always seem to hit the goal and get there. And I also thought, as I've probably said on this podcast at some point, I thought that having a good number of Cybertrucks delivered during Q4, because that was when general production was underway, versus last Q4 2023, when again they only delivered maybe a few hundred, would get them to that goal and help them, get to 506,000 and change and hit that 1.8 million for the year. So I screenshotted the poll results the morning that right after the Q4 numbers were officially announced, because I didn't want people to sneak in and cheat on the poll after the announcement had already been made. So with plenty of results in the poll, plenty of votes, the results were as follows. 42% of you thought that they would make it to 500,000. You'd be at 500,000, but less than the 506,000 and change that they needed. So 42% of you voted 501,000 to 506,000, just under what they need. 31% of you thought that they were going to get there, that they would beat the 506K, and you voted 506 to 525,000. 4% of you thought it would be above 5.25, and 24% of you actually ended up voting with what turned out to be the right answer this time, which was below 500,000 deliveries. But So a lot of you thought that they were going to get right on the cusp of it, and you were all pretty darn close, whether you voted in that 42% block that said 501 to 506, or in that 24% that said below 500,000. So as always, all of you are very astute followers of Tesla. Thank you all for voting. And a friendly reminder that I post a new Patreon poll every week, typically on Tuesday evenings. And unlike the lightning round bonus mini episodes that I do for Patreon, the poll is free for anyone and everyone. You do not have to be supporting me on Patreon to vote in each week's poll. I make it open to everybody because I want you all to stop by and cast your vote. So cruise on over every week to patreon.com/Tesla podcast. By the way, I guess maybe I suppose I should have done this last week, but I'll go ahead and make it now. A prediction, that is, for the delivery total for 2025. And I'm just gonna, maybe this is lazy. You can, if you want to accuse me of being lazy, okay. I wouldn't necessarily fight you, but I'm gonna go with 2 million even. Just 2 million vehicle deliveries for 2025. And why do I say that? Well, I think between the Cybertruck's continued production ramp and the introduction of the Model 2.5 cars, I think they should hit 2 million. I mean, I hope I'm going to end up being conservative on that estimate, but I think 2 million should work, even if the Model Y ends up dipping a bit, as the Model 3 seemed to this year, on account, seemed to last year. I have to get in the habit of saying last year now. As the 3 dipped in 2024, maybe the Y will dip a little bit in 2025 on account of the imminent introduction of the Project Juniper refresh. Before I continue with the rest of this week's Tesla news, I want to mention my friends at Accelerate Auto and their XCare extended warranty coverage option for your Tesla. They have not just your traditional extended warranty, since Tesla themselves only offers a fixed 2-year, 25,000-mile extended warranty, which you have to buy before your factory warranty is up. That is not the case with XCare. You can buy that anytime you want, particularly even if you didn't buy the car from Tesla new. So you really have more flexibility with XCare. Also, they offer an optional battery and drivetrain coverage as well, so you can add that onto your policy, or you could just get the battery and drivetrain coverage if that's the thing, because that's the most expensive component of the car. If you just want to have an additional warranty on that, you can just buy that, or you can couple that with a regular XCare extended warranty. The XCare plan does everything Tesla's coverage does and more. That means $100 deductible, 24/7 roadside assistance, but also rental reimbursement and trip interruption coverage. So whether you want to do, say, a 3-year, 40,000-mile plan like I have, or you want to go up to 10 years and up to 125,000 more miles, you can do that, or anything in between. So go to accelerateauto.com/xcare. That's XCELERATEAUTO.com/XCARE. You can also click the link in the episode description as well. Make sure, though, that if you're there and you're going to buy a policy, use the discount code LIGHTNING for $100 off your purchase. Let's get back to some more Tesla stats, shall we? The Tesla charging team posted some fun numbers from their now completed 2024. They said, Happy New Year! In 2024, we launched superchargers in 3 new countries, 11,500 plus new supercharger stalls opened, a 19% year-over-year growth, with a total of 67,000 plus superchargers worldwide, delivered 5.2 plus terawatt hours, offsetting over 5.5 billion kilograms of CO2, or 12.1 billion pounds, and 2.4 billion liters, or 633 million gallons of gasoline. And then they finish by noting 2025 will be our biggest year yet. Max de Ziger from the Tesla supercharging team adds, quote, "Wild that with 1,000 new locations this year, the Tesla charging team is one of the fastest growing tenants and real estate deal makers in the world, with 5.2 terawatt hours and growing about 30% year over year, also quickly becoming one of the largest corporate energy users. The CO2 and gasoline that we're offsetting is super motivating, with less than 5% of vehicles on the road globally being electric. We're just getting started," end quote. Well, for me, the key stat here is that year-over-year growth. Almost 30% year-over-year growth on that energy delivered. That is wild. That is an absolutely incredible number that's only going to go on to become absolutely staggering in the coming years. Plus, we've got V4 supercharging to look forward to, which sadly is limited to the Cybertruck for now, at least. I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if the Model S and Model X support 500 kilowatt charging after some kind of significant upgrade, as I mentioned that I was hoping for, rather than having them be killed off altogether on my New Year's predictions episode last week. Because S and X, while their battery packs are not as large as the Cybertruck, at least the dual motor or tri-motor Cybertruck, it is going to be interesting to see how big the battery pack will be on the single motor Cybertruck with only 250 miles of range. Anyway, S and X do have a 99 kilowatt hour battery pack. And no more, no less. That's it. That's the pack in every S and X. So that's still a decent sized pack. And if Tesla did put a significant refresh, redesign, what have you, either on the outside, under the skin, or both on S and X, I could definitely see some serious supercharging speeds on an S and X upgrade. But fingers crossed for that. And yet more numbers to talk about this week as I pivot to a different but similar story. The Model Y, as expected, continues to crush it. So Tesla posted an overall 2024 recap on their X account. And one of the things mentioned in that X post thread was, quote, "Model Y is on track to be the best-selling car in the world again," end quote. Certainly no surprise, and certainly well-earned. I mean, anecdotally speaking, again, from my neck of the woods in Tesla-tastic San Francisco Bay Area, they are absolutely everywhere. Just today, I was out in my car, and in the lane next to me, there were 3 Model Ys in a row. They weren't all together. I'm 99% sure that's just how it is around here. And it's no surprise, right? It makes a lot of sense. The Model Y is probably the best overall value that you can find in a car in terms of price, safety, cargo volume, performance, driver assistance technology, and fun factor. In terms, by the way, when I say fun factor, I don't just mean the acceleration, the roller coaster-like acceleration that a Tesla gives you, but also the video games in the car and the other fun things like the zero emissions mode, all those extra fun things that Tesla does in the UI. Not to mention, by the way, things like dog mode, Sentry mode, etc. The Model Y, which I know all those things are all on every Tesla, but if you're looking at the Model Y, which is in the class of car that happens to be the most desirable one in the world, the crossover SUV, the Model Y is just such a phenomenal package in that crossover SUV space in terms of, again, everything, but including price. You get so much for the money in a Model Y, and it's no surprise that it is, again, looking like it's going to be the best-selling new car in the entire world. I think the only way it doesn't retain the crown this year in 2025 is, as I mentioned earlier, if there happens to be a significant speed bump in the global production of Model Y during that switchover to the Juniper refresh that probably going to be happening pretty soon now, I would guess. That's what I talked about on last week's show. If it does hold on to its title this year, then this year might be the final year of its reign as the world's best-selling new car. Why do I say that? Because the Model 2.5 vehicles, even individually, might dethrone the Model Y starting in 2026 after it's ramped up, after going into production around the middle of this year per Tesla's last update. And no one else is likely to challenge either the 2.5 cars or the Model Y, globally speaking, right? The Toyota Corolla's up there. The RAV4, I think it was the other one that's up there. But the Y and the 2.5 cars are likely to dominate the global sales leaderboards for the next several years, would be my guess. Next up this week, more good news for the end of Tesla's 2024. The Model 3, and this is the final story I have for you this week before I move on to your phone calls in the Ride the Lightning hotline. The new Model 3, the 3 Fresh, won a top award in Sweden. I saw this story on Teslarati, who writes, leading Swedish motoring magazine, Teknikens Värld, and I probably pronounced that incorrectly, and I do apologize, has announced that the Tesla Model 3 is the winner of its 2024 Car of the Year award. As per the publication, the Model 3 may not be the best vehicle with the most bells and whistles. It may not even be the best vehicle on paper. However, the new Model 3 is such a refined and well-rounded vehicle that it completely blows the competition out of the water. This was the case when Teknikens Värld tested the BYD Seal against the new Model 3. As per the publication, the Seal, quote, fell short of the Tesla on pretty much every point, but almost all cars do, end quote. They continued saying, quote, with close to a record 79 points out of 100 in the rating compilation, the Tesla Model 3 is 2024's highest rated test car, and while it is the answer to the question of which new car to buy, it raises the question, how can the other car manufacturers still not have caught up with Tesla? The Model 3, which was already the market leader, with its substantial update became an even better car, and that without becoming more expensive, end quote. Then finally, there's one other excerpt, quote, the Model 3 remains the benchmark in its class, not only in terms of practicality, but also in terms of price. It might not be the funnest new car you can buy, but when you factor in all the factors like charging network, app control, handling, and performance, it's hard to argue against the Model 3. Now we're just waiting for the roomier, more family-friendly Model Y to get the same updates, end quote. Well, I am super stoked to get my new Model 3 out on the road and get used to it and really start to live with it. I mean, at some point, I do want to do a mini review for you guys here on the podcast, specifically comparing the new Model 3 performance to the old Model 3 performance, because I haven't seen that angle taken yet anywhere on YouTube or in automotive media. Now, I admit that is maybe somewhat of a niche thing, right? Just performance versus performance, because as I mentioned a little while ago, best guess is that 1 in 10 or maybe 2 in 10 Model 3s are performance cars. So it's a niche group of folks that I'll be talking to in comparing the old Model 3 performance to the new one, but it's a niche that I can accurately fill. So I will do that for you after I've had a whole lot more time with my new car. I have not picked it up from Immaculate Reflections yet. The holidays have slowed things down. Certainly, I want Jeff and the crew there to have their holidays with their families and not be working on my car or any other car over the course of the holidays. Anyway, major congratulations to Tesla's design and engineering teams for winning this award, making the Model 3 even better than it already was with the 3 Fresh. Oh, and if you're curious about how the current, quote-unquote, old Model Y, it's not old yet, but if you're curious about how the current Model Y fared in this same major car magazine in Sweden, it came in third for the year on their rankings, behind, of course, the 3 Fresh and the Volkswagen Golf. So, as they mentioned themselves, perhaps next year, when the Juniper refresh comes along, maybe it will top their charts and win this award next year. All right, that is everything I've got for you in a busy kickoff to 2025, but I am far from done. Stick with me after this very short musical interlude and word from Tesla's chief designer, because I have your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls teed up and ready to go right after this.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Welcome to the Ride the Lightning hotline segment of the podcast. This is where I play your phone calls when you're kind enough to dial me up, leave a message, and we'll hear from your questions, your comments, your discussion topics as they pertain to all things Tesla. And if you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic as it pertains to Tesla, I welcome and invite you to call in. The 2 easy ways to do that are: A, use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software. Record your question. Please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many callers each week as possible. And then email that file to me at my podcast email address, which is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or B, call in and leave a message anytime, day or night, on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free number that you can dial right now if you like. If something comes to mind, just hit pause on this thing and dial me up. The number is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. First up this week is Renee from California, responding to a caller from a recent episode, maybe the last month or so, who wanted to adjust the height in a setting by setting, like physical GPS location by location, on the hatch of a Model Y. Go ahead, Renee.
Hi, Ryan. This is Renee from Azusa, California. I believe a couple of weeks ago, a caller called in about being able to adjust the height of the hatch on his Model Y. Well, I just found something serendipitously on another website that addressed that issue. And it said, if you have a Tesla with a powered trunk, you can adjust the height of the hatch opening to avoid hitting the ceiling of a lower garage. To set the desired height, first open the hatch, then manually raise or lower the hatch to the height that you'd like it to open at that location. You can then press and hold the hatch button, that's the close button under the lip of the hatch. Took me a while to figure that out. On the trunk until you hear a chime. The car will now remember the desired height and always remember that position at that location. So I tried it on my new Model Y that I just acquired a couple weeks ago, trading in my 2019 Model 3. And it works like a charm or chime. Anyway, I hope that helps. Thanks for your podcast and keep up the good work.
Renee, thank you very much for this, because this is exactly what we were hoping for. I did know that you could set the maximum height by holding the button in, but whether it's a new bit of functionality or not, I did not know that it will remember different heights at different GPS locations. So that is perfect. Thank you again. I think you just made a lot of your fellow Model Y owners out there very happy, and potentially just saved a number of them from accidentally denting their rear lift gates at some point in time. This is I put this phone call first for a reason. This is a 10 out of 10 phone call to kick off 2025 with. Happy New Year, Renee. It's helping people out. That's what I want to try and do here as part of Ride the Lightning. Great stuff. Next up, here's Brian from Pennsylvania responding to one of my predictions, my New Year's predictions from last week's podcast.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that. Talking about your predictions and your prediction that the S and the X are going to go bye-bye. I think no. So they've talked about the Model 2.5 and other versions, other types of vehicles being built on existing platform. And I'm thinking maybe that they are going to build a minivan or a small cargo van or something of that type on the S/X platform, utilizing those assembly lines, and thus then keeping the S and the X. What do you think? Thanks again.
You know, Brian, I think you are more likely to be correct on that one than I am. I mean, you make a lot of sense right here. If GA1 in Fremont, aka the Model S and Model X line, has the capacity for, say, 250,000 cars per year, but only makes 80,000 cars per year on that line, then yeah, you could keep the S and X alive and build, I don't know, 170,000 or so Tesla minivans per year on the same line. I hope you're right. I'd love to be wrong on this one. I think I probably am, but I would love for you to be right on this one. Thank you, Brian, as always, for your call. Next is another familiar voice, particularly if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. Here's Kenny from Richmond, Virginia.
Hey, Ryan. What's going on, man? It's Kenny from Richmond, Virginia. Hey, I hope you've been doing well and have had a great start to year 2025. At least I hope it's a little bit better than mine. I wanted to talk through a quick issue I was having with my car and see if maybe anybody could help out. So since I got the car, every time I get into it, I have to connect my phone via Bluetooth manually. I've got to go into the settings and hit connect. Well, I didn't even know Teslas weren't supposed to work like that until I get in my brother's Tesla, and same year, same model, and his works. I was like, what in the world, man? You don't have to connect? He's like, no, what are you talking about? So I've been having this problem with my car ever since I got it and didn't even know it was an issue. Well, I reached out to the service center, and they were like, hey, we'll do $100 for over-the-air diagnostic. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So they're like, all right, well, bring it on in. They told me it was going to cost $200. So I was like, well, I don't want to do that. It's annoying, but I think I can get by it. But I can't deal with it any longer. So I reach out to the service center, and they say, hey, look, bring it on in. We'll take a look at it. And the estimate goes up to $300. So I'm like, what in the world is going on? So anyway, I figured I'd reach out to you and the listeners to see, hey, do y'all have any recommendations on how I might fix that? I have done every reset I could possibly think of in the car and on my phone, but still no luck. So anyway, want to see if maybe somebody could help. Also, too, in other news, I wanted to let you know I drove that Cybertruck over this past weekend, and man, that thing is sweet. I tell you what, maybe one more issue go wrong with this 2021 Model Y, and I might be looking for an excuse to just get out of this and get into one of those. All right, man. Well, take it easy. Hope you're doing well.
Kenny, Happy New Year to you, and it is indeed a great start to the year to hear from you. For newer listeners out there, I've never met Kenny, but his calls over the years always make my day. There is just something about Kenny's voice where he just seems like the nicest, most pleasant guy. I hope, Kenny, that I do get to meet you someday. Anyway, Kenny, I do wish I could help you on this because my phone also apparently does the right thing and automatically pairs up with my car when I get in it. But my guess here is that someone has a constructive suggestion for you out there. So let's throw it out right now to our fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts and see what comes back. Please, anybody out there that thinks they can help, either email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com, or call in if you've got an idea for how to help Kenny out, along with maybe anybody else out there, who might be suffering from this annoyance as well. I've got time for one more call this week. Here is Robert from near Philly with a feature idea for our cars.
Hi, Ryan. This is Robert from near Philly. And I have a Model S P85D that I've owned since 2015. And pretty much the entire time, it's bugged me that there's a missing feature. And so maybe if Tesla hears this, somebody will think about implementing it. You can say call contact, where contact is someone in your list of contacts. And then you can select a person and phone number, mobile, home, whatever, to call. What's always bugged me is that you can't say navigate to contact, or maybe navigate to the word contact and then a contact from your list, and then get a list of potential destinations on the screen to select from. Always bugged me. Thanks.
Robert, I agree. This one just seems like a no-brainer. I've got nothing to add on this one. I'm just going to sit here and agree with you 100%. That's such a good idea. Let's get this one out into the world and hope that the right folks at Tesla hear it. Thank you so much for calling in, and thank you to everybody that's taken the time to call in. If you have called in and I did not play your call this week, I might play it on next week's podcast. But keep your calls coming. I gave you the 2 call-in methods at the top of this segment. You can refer back to there if you would like to call in.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Sierra 117. You're listening to Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. You know, that Cybertruck looks a lot like a warthog, doesn't it? Master Chief, out.
All right, time to talk to you about the Soul of Adventure and the Spirit of Adventure, my 2 Model 3 performances. I mentioned a little while ago what's going on with the Soul of Adventure. It is still wrapping up over at Immaculate Reflections, getting the paint correction, the full paint protection film, and the ceramic coating on everything, including the wheels, so that they will be nice and easy to clean. That's been a godsend on the Spirit of Adventure, is having the wheels ceramic coated, because dirt just doesn't stick to them. So they clean up, they don't get super dirty, and then they clean really, really easily. But as I mentioned, it's been the holidays, so I'm not, in any huge hurry to get the car back. I want Jeff and his crew to have their holidays. But by the time I get around to next week's podcast, I will almost certainly have it back, and we'll be able to give you some first impressions of really getting used to the car and driving it. Like, for instance, I haven't even done a launch in it yet, as I think I mentioned when I took delivery. So I'm looking forward to doing that as soon as I get it back. And it's going to be great. If I didn't mention this last week, I did get a great verdict, a thumbs up from Jeff at Immaculate Reflections, that my paint finish is good. There was nothing in it that paint correction couldn't address. So I'm going to get just a beautiful, beautiful ultra red car back. But as for the Spirit of Adventure, that's where the tire curse continues. As I mentioned, if you don't want to hear this story, if you don't care about me and what's going on in my Tesla life, that's fine. I take no offense to that. I've given you all the Tesla news I have for the week, plus the phone calls. So if you want to pull the ripcord and bail out now, that's fine. The only other content, so to speak, after this is the pro tip of the week, which I will do immediately after I tell this story. But the tire curse has found a new wrinkle this week. And basically, I had a scenario where everything that could have gone wrong went pretty wrong, and it's just wild. So I went to visit my parents in Arizona for about 3 days last week, and I left on a late afternoon flight on whatever day it was. It doesn't matter. So that day, I wanted to get Daisy and Zelina together for one last walk, what could be the last walk that those two dogs ever get to take together. Now, I hope we get to see Zelina again, but there's no guarantee of that, right? Like her forever family that needs her has been very gracious to us in keeping in touch and sending us pictures, and in this case, letting us watch Zelina while they traveled internationally. But there are no guarantees, right? That they could just decide to do their thing and we might not get to see her again. I don't know. Anyway, so I wanted to give the two dogs one last walk together, but not around the neighborhood. I've got this spot outside of the city. You know, I live in San Francisco itself. I've got a nice quiet spot that I like to go to. And so I brought both dogs there, and as I'm leaving, as I'm kind of getting out of my neighborhood and approaching the turn for the on-ramp to the freeway, I make this right turn, and then I look, like basically I have to look left because I need to get over to the left lane right away. So I'm kind of going through the turn, looking left. Okay, it's clear. And then as I turn my head back to the right to look straight ahead, spilled in the road in front of me is a box of probably 3 or 4 inch long screw nails. Like they're nails, but they're screws. They're these like 3 or 4 inch things. I do my best to not, and I'm it's far enough in the past now where I'm okay here, but I was so frustrated in the moment that that I said some things I wouldn't say on this podcast. It was just, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It was like a scene out of a Roadrunner versus Wile E. Coyote cartoon where Wile E. Coyote had just spread a giant box of Acme nails in the road to get the Roadrunner to step on. It was insane. So I did my best to straddle it because that was all I could do at that point. There was no going to the left or going to the right. I just had to try and kind of go over it directly. So I did that, and I continued on the freeway down to where I was going, and I didn't get any alerts, any tire pressure warnings on the car as I'm driving down. So I kind of forgot about it real quick because I had other things on my brain. I know I had a flight to catch later that afternoon. This is a key part of the story. So I've got a limited time. And how I had structured it was I was going to do this walk, and then I was going to drive home, and then I was going to have about 30 minutes just to do any final wrap up before I went to the airport and got on the plane to Arizona. So I go do the dog walk. It's awesome. It's great having the two dogs together for hopefully not the last time, but at least the last time for now. And I get back in the car, put the dogs in the car, get back in the car, and I start to head home. And is in about, I would say after maybe 2 minutes, however long it takes for the TPMS to register after the car's been turned back on, because it does take a couple minutes. Immediately, I get the yellow alert on the screen. I swipe on the card and check the pressure, and it's quite low. It was like, it's supposed to be 42 is the normal pressure that my 20-inch tires run on. And I want to say it was 34. So it was bad. And I'm watching it, and it's ticking down like 1 PSI about every 30 seconds. So knowing that I have a plane to catch, I'm like, okay, do I pull over and do I just put air in the tire? So I carry a tire inflator, whatever those things are called. I carry one in the trunk that just plugs in and gets power from the cigarette lighter adapter in the center console. So it's like, do I just pull over, put air in it, and try to get it home? Because I got to get on a plane and just know that I'm going to come back to a flat tire, but then I'll just pump it up, get it to America's Tire, where I have the road hazard warranty for this exact thing. They'll patch the tire. But it's losing PSI quickly enough where I thought, I don't think I can make it all the way home. So then my next thought was, can I make it to America's Tire? Because it was a weekday and it was a business day. So I'm like, if I can get there, would they let me effectively cut in line? Because it's always super crazy there. And it's like a 1 to 2 hour wait every time, which, unless you have an appointment, which it is what it is. But I thought, I don't know if I can even make it there. And that, to put it in perspective, America's Tire was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles away, maybe 4, something like that, 3 or 4 miles away. But then, thankfully, I was near a Tesla store / service center. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to take it to Tesla, explain the situation, that I have a plane to catch, see if they can patch me up and have me on my way so I can make my flight. So I get to Tesla, and when I get out, I can hear the tire hissing. So it's real bad by the time I get to Tesla. And so I get to Tesla, and I have to say, they were great. So this was Tesla Burlingame. Shout out to Nate at Tesla Burlingame. They got me in super quick. I explained the situation, but they by the way, I guess I should back up a tad. So Nate goes out to take a look at the tire, take a closer look than I did, because again, I'm kind of in a rush here, and I just wanted to get in and talk to somebody at Tesla as quick as I possibly could. Nate goes out to look at the tire and brings me out to look. The tire, the screw nail, it didn't go in the sidewall, but it was about maybe a quarter to a half an inch from the sidewall on the tread, but it went in twice. So it punctured twice. It like basically went in, I don't know, it's sideways. That's not the right way to, anyway, it went in and then went out of the tire on the tread. So not patchable. I even asked Nate, I said, well, could you just patch me even though you're not supposed to patch this? He goes and asks somebody, and he comes back and says no, which I get, it's probably like a liability thing, right? Like if the tire blows out and there's an accident, maybe I could sue them, whatever. But okay, I wasn't upset at that. So okay, the tire has to be replaced, but I have my tire warranty at America's Tire. And so I'm just like, well, I guess I just have to eat this. This is just the situation that I'm in. I'm on the clock here. I'm kind of stuck because the tire is shot. So Nate checks. They don't have the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tire anymore, which went on every Model 3 Performance for the first, 3 or 4 years before they switched to a Pirelli. A P0. So they don't have the tire. So basically he's like, well, do you want the Pirelli? And my choices are overinflate it to try and get it either home or to America's Tire, where again, the clock is ticking. Am I going to miss my flight? Or do I just take the Pirelli? I decided to take the Pirelli, and that was almost $500. With installation. It's not a cheap tire, and it's the installation, it costs what it costs. But I will say, Nate, he actually, I hope he doesn't get in trouble for me saying, he gave me a little bit of a discount on the tire, because he said, well, because we don't have the matching tire, I'm going to give you a little bit of a discount. That was very nice. He didn't have to do that. And he did get me in right away. Like they prioritized me because it was a safety issue and I had my time crunch. So Tesla was great. My only issue with Tesla is not, because he actually told me that the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, he said that Tesla discontinued it. Not Michelin, but meaning Tesla, or at least that Tesla, I don't know if it applies to all of them, I have to presume it does, that Tesla had discontinued that tire. That I'm not a fan of. So that's not Nate's fault. If anybody from Tesla is listening to this, not a fan. I love the Michelin. Please keep stocking it because America's Tire stocks it. So Tesla was great. They did everything they could. And they put a Pirelli tire on along with the three, I have three Michelins and one Pirelli, which as you all know is not ideal. It's not ideal to have 3 of one tire and 1 of another tire. So I take get the car home, and thankfully I made my flight okay. It wasn't even super stressful. I was a little behind schedule, but I did okay. So I'm leaving out a part. I have to back up. I said this was going to be a story. It's a story. So not only was the puncture not patchable because it was too close to the sidewall and it went through twice, but as Nate pointed out to me on my wheel, when it went through the second time, when it went in and then when it came out, it chipped or it scratched, whatever you want. It scratched my 0G wheel. So some nice insult to injury there by damaging my wheel in addition to taking out the tire because of, reminder, a cartoonish box of nails that I guess must have fallen off the back of somebody's work truck in the middle of the road. I was about the middle of the road. So this is just like, it's like everything that can go wrong. So I've got a flight. It's all a disaster. It's all horrible. And now I'm out almost $500 with a mismatched tire. So, again, I took the Pirelli and I go to Arizona, then I get home and I thought, okay, well, I get home and on January 2nd, because I got home on New Year's Eve and they're closed on the 1st. So first thing in the morning, January 2nd, because their appointments were all booked up. I did check. I just decided I'm going to go right when they open so that the line maybe the wait isn't quite as bad. Well, I get there at 8 a.m. when they open and the line is 8 people deep already, but okay, it is what it is. So it actually wasn't too bad of a wait. I get in there and I explain to the America's Tire associate the situation. And Tesla, by the way, had given me, Nate's like, do you want me to put the damaged tire in the trunk so that you can show it to America's Tire? I was like, yes, thank you. I want that. So I had the Michelin with the screw nail through it in 2 places in the trunk. So I explain the situation, and I should add there was one other piece of this, and that is the tire that I already had patched on the Spirit of Adventure from a couple weeks prior. I just caught a nail, whatever, and that one was patchable. America's Tire patched it, but either something went wrong with the plug, the patch, whatever. It was still slowly leaking air, so I'd had to put air in the other rear tire a couple times. So I go to America, so I tell them, well, I've actually got 2 issues. One is the fix you'd already done, something is going on, and I don't think it's a new puncture, it's something with the patch that's already there. So they said, okay, we'll take a look at it. And then I explain, we walk out to the car, I open the trunk, show them the body of the tire with the nail through it in 2 places. And I thought, my thought was, they might just tell me no. They might say, sorry, we can't honor this because you've already replaced the tire. And then if they did honor it, I thought, well, okay, I guess then I have to take the Pirelli to Tesla and see if maybe they'd buy it back, because I hadn't driven on it. It had 50 miles or less on it. But America's Tire, to their great credit, not only didn't fight me in the slightest on honoring the tire warranty, but I'm standing there, the guy's inputting everything in the computer, to get everything set up to tell the shop what to do, get everything in my account. There's another woman next to me, another customer, talking to another associate, and she apparently experienced a similar thing. And so the associate that's working with her is telling her, okay, so yep, you weren't able to get to us, and you bought another tire, and I'm going through the process now of buying back your tire and reimbursing you. And I'm looking over, wait, this is exactly my situation. And I look back over at my guy, my sales associate, and he's like, yep, that's what we're doing. I didn't ask for that. I didn't even know that that was part of their road hazard tire warranty. I didn't know. And so this completely made my day. So even though I bought a different tire from Tesla, again, out of necessity, that I don't even know if America's Tire carries that Pirelli, they bought it back. I showed them the invoice from Tesla. They reimbursed me for the full amount, and they put a new Michelin on the car, and they ended up with the other one that had been patched a couple weeks prior but was still leaking air. They ended up replacing that one too. So I now have 2 brand new Michelin Pilot Sport 4S Tesla tires with the foam insulation in them. 2 new rear tires. And I could not have been, I mean, I was thrilled. I was already an America's Tire customer. That completely just ensured that I will be a customer there for a while, because that's crazy that they do that. I mean, I'm sure it must add up for them in the grand scheme of things, right? But I'll tell you, like, that's a great way to breed customer loyalty, knowing that if I am in a situation somewhere and have a tire problem and can't get it to them and have to buy another tire somewhere else, that I can bring the car back to them and then they'll reimburse me. Now, if it had been the correct tire, if Tesla had a Michelin Pilot tire, they still would have reimbursed me. They just wouldn't have had to replace the tire again, right? They would have just given me the money. But in this case, they took the Pirelli back and put on the new Michelin and then, the other new Michelin. So the tire warranty so I bought 2 new tire warranties for the 2 new tires, which were, the price has gone up a little bit. It was, with tax and everything, it was like $73. Now, in your neck of the woods, it could be cheaper. I live in super expensive San Francisco area. Things tend to be more expensive here, but it was like $73 per tire. So basically, I spent about $150 for the new warranties, but instead of spending what would have been about $800 out of pocket to have 2 new Michelins put on the car. So I could not be more thrilled with the service that I received at America's Tire. I promise this isn't a commercial. They're not paying me for this. I just had a great customer experience. I mean, I've had less than ideal experiences there before. Like, they have scratched my 0G wheels in a couple of places in the past, because their whole thing is speed, right? They're trying to go as fast as possible, get as many people in and out as they can, make as much money as they can. They're a big corporate machine, right? I get it. But that I just did not know, and maybe I'm informing some of you as well. I did not know that their tire road hazard warranty also included reimbursing you if you have to buy a tire somewhere else and you can't get back to them. So thankfully, this crazy tire story had a very happy ending. I'm now super thrilled. I've got 2 new rear tires on. All 4 tires match. So all's well that ends well, but it was a heck of an adventure. And I'm telling you, did I burn down a tire factory in a previous life? Because I don't know how else to explain the fact that I seem to be cursed with tire stuff. In the last month, I've on 2 different cars, 2 different Teslas, I've had 3 different tire issues. Actually, 4 different tire issues on 3 different tires on 2 different cars. But thankfully, it's all worked out fine. The new car, the Soul of Adventure, got a patch at America's Tire, and the Spirit of Adventure got 2 new Michelin Sports on the back. So, sorry that was a very, very long story, but I did warn you that if you didn't want to hang in there for this, you didn't have to. All right, time for your pro tip of the week. Here's Carrie in Northridge, California.
Hey, Ryan, this is Kerry in Northridge, California again. I've got a pro tip for your listeners. It has to do with battery degradation of the high voltage battery. As you know, most of our Teslas have a battery warranty of 100,000 miles or more, depending on model and location. Model 3s in California are warranted for 100,000 miles or 8 years if they're long range, at least the Model 3 and the Model Y. And if they are performance like yours, 120,000 miles or 8 years, whichever comes first. Tesla will not replace your battery unless it's under 70% of the original rating. So to check degradation, you need to start with under 50% battery, and you need to be prepared to not drive the car for up to 24 hours. Plug it in, put it in service mode, turn off cabin overheat, scheduled charging, Sentry mode, and start the test. There are several YouTube videos on how to do this, and you don't want to try it without watching one. The test fully drains the battery and then charges it to 100%. I'm thankful that I did this because my first attempt failed. The message was coolant level low. I checked messages, another pro tip, even if you aren't checking the battery, check your messages. Anyway, it turned out that my coolant level was very low. When I added G48 coolant, it worked fine. My test took about 22 hours, and my 50,000 mile battery, maybe 49,000 something, was at 88.1%. I will have to keep an eye on my coolant level in the future to see if it's leaking or if it was just that it hadn't been checked in several years. That's all I've got. Thanks for all that you do every week, Ryan. Take care.
Kerry, thank you for the comprehensive pro tip here. This is definitely something that a lot of folks out there might want to do at some point, if for no other reason than sheer curiosity about how their battery is holding up. I appreciate your kind words and that you took the time to call in with this. Happy New Year to you, and thank you very much for continuing to loyally listen to the podcast. And a friendly reminder, if anybody else out there has a good Tesla pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, I would welcome and encourage you to call in with it. I gave you the 2 call-in methods and the instructions for those at the a little earlier on in the podcast, maybe about half an hour ago, so refer back to that. I know this has been a long episode, thanks to my very long story there, but if you want to hang out for a few more minutes, I will tell you about some friends of Ride the Lightning that can hopefully be of use to you sooner or later here in the year 2025. Starting with AbstractOcean.com. They've got so many great aftermarket accessories for all the Teslas, yes, including the Cybertruck. So check them out at AbstractOcean.com. Click on the tab for whichever Tesla you own, and then it will just show you everything that's available for your car. Everything from the rear footwell lighting kit, which I think is great for you Model Y owners to kind of class up the view from the back seat a little bit there. There's the drop-in cup holder stabilizer. There's the very popular 4th generation tempered glass screen protector that's custom made for the Tesla screen. So much more. A lot of different lighting kits in different colors, different brightnesses, what have you. Just go take a look. AbstractOcean.com. Pile everything that you like into your online cart. When you get to checkout, use the coupon code RTLPodcast to get 15% off of your first order. That's RTLPodcast, all one word, no spaces, for a 15% discount on your first order. Also, the snap plate. I am publicly stated to be a non-fan of, I really need to go to bed. I am not a fan of the front license plate bracket that Tesla gives you with your car. I very much recommend the snap plate instead, or if you prefer the newer, stronger Snap Plate Plus, it's available for everything, S3, XY, and Cybertruck. This is the front license plate bracket that's a nice, clean, minimalist design that blends really nicely with the Tesla front end when it's installed. And if you want to remove it, maybe you're going to be at a Cars and Coffee car show, You're going to detail the car. You want to take the front plate bracket off. It leaves no unsightly hardware behind when it's removed. You want to make those fix-it tickets go away if you live in a state like me that requires the use of a front license plate. The website to go to is everyamp.com/RTL, and there's a discount code for you as well. Just punch in RTL as the coupon code for a discount. The snap plate is safety optimized with breakaway features to sacrifice itself in a worst case scenario like a parking accident or a car wash. The snap plate plus is strength optimized with hardened features for maximum strength. Both are made from recycled, made in the USA plastics with stainless steel reinforcements. Immaculate Reflections. My car is there right now. If you'd like to send your car there, if you're in or going to be in the greater San Francisco Bay Area with a car that you love, the first thing to do is go to the website, irdetailing.com. There's a contact form through there, and when you fill that out, just say, hey, I'm a Ride the Lightning listener. May I please have the Ride the Lightning listener discount? And any service that you book in with Jeff at Immaculate Reflections, you'll be given that Ride the Lightning listener discount. Whether you're doing ceramic coating, paint protection film on some or all of the car, paint correction, or some combination thereof, I guarantee you, and I do truly mean this, I guarantee you, you will leave happy when your car is done. I promise you that. So again, it's irdetailing.com. You can also look them up on Instagram. The username there is immaculate_reflections. And on Yelp, he's yelp.com/Immaculate Reflections. The Patreon, I mentioned it a little earlier in the podcast towards the top. I'll mention it one more time here since a new year is underway and maybe you think, yes, Ryan, new year, I am going to support you on Patreon now as a way to say thanks and support you for what you're doing here with Ride the Lightning. I'd be very grateful if that is the decision that you come to. You can visit my Patreon page found at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. And again, those support tiers start at just $5 a month. The $10 tier is the most popular because you also get those weekly lightning round bonus mini episodes. I guess I kind of just did one just here in the middle of the regular podcast, not in the middle, towards the end, but that whole tire story could have been a lightning round, but it's okay. I wanted to tell all of you about that crazy tire story, but so the Patreon is there. I would be very, very grateful if you'd consider a pledge. Maybe here in a new year, maybe you decide now is the time. So go to patreon.com/Tesla podcast. If you're not already following this podcast on your favorite podcast service, well, I recommend you do that. It's totally free, and the reason to do that is because it will remind you anytime a new episode drops, which with Ride the Lightning is every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. So you can follow me on Apple Podcasts, on TuneIn, on Spotify, or on YouTube Podcasts, and probably some other ones as well, but those are the big ones. Just search Ride the Lightning Tesla Podcast. You should find me, no problem. Click that follow button. Doesn't cost you anything. Before I go, I'll mention that the referral program does continue, though the perks have dropped down now that the year is over, the quarter is over. It's still a $500 discount, though, if you're buying a 3 or a Y, if you order it with someone's referral link, and then $1,000 off of a SX or Cybertruck. So use somebody's code if you're going to order a car, somebody's link, I should say. And if you'd like to use mine, it's ts.la/Ryan73014. Type that into any web browser on a desktop or mobile device and just go to that site. That'll take you to the Tesla website, to a landing page where you can choose which model you want, including inventory cars. And from there, you can configure the car how you see fit, order it, and the referral discount will be applied. Finally, I'm on a couple of different social media platforms. I am on X, where my username is DMC_Ryan. And if you'd like to find me on Instagram, which is Instagram's the one that's pretty much all Tesla all the time, that one I have the same username, DMC_Ryan. If you'd like to email me for any particular Tesla reason, you can do so at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Finally this week, a quick shout out to the top tier Patreon backers. I am very grateful to them for their very generous and continued support. I will start with the Maximum Plaid crew. Thank you so much and Happy New Year to Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Adam Lavoie, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Dustin Hart, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Adam Christie, Damon Klein, Jeff Brown, Jerry Slinger, Clayton Goodfellow, Michael Mizrahi, Kenneth Corbett, and Brian Bertoglio. Next up, the Roadster in Space tier backers, the absolute top tier of the Patreon. Huge thanks and huge Happy New Year goes out to Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from near Philly, American Home Contractors, GetAmber.com, Doug Carey, Rav, and Michael Gallo. Finally, a Happy New Year, a thanks and a hello goes out to the grandfathered in Plaid level supporters. They are George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk in quotes, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. All right, that will wrap it up for the first Ride the Lightning of 2025. I guess I've got, 51 more to go, right? Because it's a 52-week year. Although, who knows, maybe if depending on how the calendar shakes out with Sundays, maybe there could be 53, maybe there could be 51, I don't know. But anyway, plenty more Ride the Lightning to come here in 2025. Right now, I am going to go bust out the big Christmas gift that my wife amazingly got me. My amazing wife amazingly got me. She got me an Uni pizza oven, a home pizza oven where you can wood fire your own pizzas at home at like 900 degrees. And you can really come up with some serious restaurant quality pizza. Although there's this whole science and art to making the dough and the hydration and all this stuff that I've read a little bit about, but I guess I'm going to be going down that rabbit hole to try and become an amateur pizzaiolo. But we've got some dough that we've been refrigerating for 2 days per the instructions of this one recipe that I found that I wanted to try, and we're going to try to make a couple of pizzas out there right now. So, Happy New Year to all of you. I am so grateful for your time, for your enthusiasm, for your attention to hang out with me and chat all things Tesla each week. As always, I am here for you every single week. Happy electric motoring, my friends, and I'll see you back for more Tesla chatter on Ride the Lightning in 2025 next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.